right, welcome to this edition of the Multifamily Investor Nation webinar. My name is Melissa Broom. I'm the Director of Marketing for PassiveInvesting.com, and I'm going to be discussing the anatomy of an offering pitch deck for apartment syndication. So really excited. This is a huge part of what I do in my position at our company. So I've really taken this process and, I have it, down to a science on how we get it done from start to finish. So here to share with you kind of our process and, what the different things we use to put these offering pitch decks together. So I'm sharing my screen now. So I'm going to pull up one of our recent offerings, Las Palmas. So I'm just going to sort of go through and share each section and kind of how we go about that and why we do what we do. One second, let me fix my screens here and get my Q&A box. If you have any questions, please drop those in the Q&A or the chat box, and I will answer those at the end once I'm done. So if you're on our mailing list, you receive a hard copy of this as well. So we have a digital version and a printed copy. So as you can see, this is like a perfect bound book. This one I think is 73 pages. So you can imagine it's 100-pound paper each page. So it's very thick, very sturdy. So we mail these out as well as have a digital link. So we use a service called Issuu or ISSUU.com to share these with our investors. And the reason for that is we can make live updates. So in the event that I'm looking through and I find a typo, because typos happen, I can easily go in, edit, and re-upload, and I don't have to send a new link to my investors. It just gets updated in real time. So that's a perk to using Issuu.com. It's ISSUU.com. So you see our cover is typically a full picture of the property. The beginning of these are very picture heavy because it really kind of sets the groundwork for the property for our potential investors. Like, hey, we do a lot of Class A properties as well as Class B, and they are beautiful properties. So it really makes it easy here to drop beautiful photos of these properties. So you'll see on page 4 and 5, we've got our managing partners. It's really important to our managing partners that they're accessible. So you'll see their cell phone numbers are right here, as well as their email addresses. They are available if we have a full investor relations team, but if for some reason you needed to get in touch with Dan, you can. And then we've also got all our legal disclaimers here in the beginning. So just what the attorneys would like us to put. So that's pretty typical standard language, and it's the same in every single offering, but we do need to include that. Same thing here, a little bit of legal disclaimer. And then we get into table of contents. So the cool thing about this service is you can click to the page. So like property profile, it'll bring you right to that page instead of having to flip through. So we really like this service. It makes it easy for our investors to use. So the first section is the executive summary, and that goes into just the summary of the property, our offering summary table. So this just kind of breaks down our numbers and kind of a snapshot of our numbers. Again, this offering in particular, and most of our offerings are for accredited investors. So that's explained right here in the bottom. And then we do another snapshot of the property. And then we get to page 14 and 15. So in our pitch decks, we always put our returns and our equity structure on page 14 and 15. So it's easy to reference if our investor relations team is talking to a potential investor and they ask a question. Hey, if you go to page 15 in your investor offering memorandum or our investor pitch deck, it's always in the same place. So that's made it easy for our team to really use this when working with our investors. So yeah, you see we break down our capital stack, the structure. We also hyperlink our blended calculator. So this takes you directly to an Excel document where you can input your investment. Let's say you want to invest $250,000. You can input that and see what your returns are going to be. So that's pretty cool as well. In the printed version, there's no hyperlink. It just says, please email Andrew, our Director of Investor Relations, and he can get you that spreadsheet. So moving on, again, we kind of have a high level view of the property, break it down, how many units, square foot, year built, et cetera, the acreage, how pre-leased the property is. And then this section sort of kind of is just a kind of a brief summary of demographics. And this isn't always going to look the same. This is sort of where we cater this section to the property itself, because not every property is going to have a value add, or not every property is going to have an exceptional quality tenant base, but you might have something else that's really great about that property that you put right here in the beginning to say, hey, this is a new construction property, or this is in the best part of Orlando, Florida, or this is, you just take what's really great about the property and location and the investment and put it in this beginning section. So you can see I've got another one here. This is our towns, which is an active deal we're currently raising for. The beginning section talks more about, let's see. So yeah, there's like a brand new shopping center going up across from this property in particular. So that was the first thing we highlighted, is, hey, there's about to be 12,000 plus square feet of retail, medical, and restaurant space, within walking distance of this property. So really just decide what's best and highlight that in the first portion of the pitch deck. Same goes here, the distance to to employers, and, how, what's in the area. All right, so moving on to the property profiles. So this is where we get into the nitty gritty of like how many units there are, the square footage of those units, what their the rent per square foot, rent per unit is, the different amenities and features in those units. Is there, what kind of flooring, what kind of appliances, what kind of amenities there are. And then we kind of break it down here as well on the room count of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. Sometimes we just have properties that are 1 and 2. We have a property in Nashville that we just closed on, and that had studio 1 and 2, just because it was more of an urban property where 3 bedrooms just aren't a thing in downtown Nashville. Apparently, I learned that as well. So yeah, we have our site plan showing the outline of the site, breaking it down here. And, not every investor is interested in the type of interior walls there are, but we want to make sure we include this type of information to really make it easier for our investor relations team. So someone's not interested they don't have to pick up the phone or write an email to find out, what's the site density of this property, because maybe that's something that that investor is interested in. But we try to put as much as we can in this on these pages for our investors. So we help our investor relations team out by limiting those questions. Parking ratio, it's important as well. And then we get into our floor plans. So we just sort of break down and kind of show what the property has to offer, the different floor plans, how many of those floor plans there are. And then we get into our financial analysis. This is something where we have a spreadsheet. I work closely with our acquisitions team. We have a spreadsheet that we use. It's called our OM financial sheet. And basically all of the tables that you see in this section, they fill in on that Excel doc. And then I take that the information from the Excel doc and put it in here. So I'm not going and pulling this information from the underwriting. They make it easy for me, fortunately, where they kind of give me a snapshot and I don't have to dig through the underwriting to get these numbers. But yeah, we put our offering summary table again, like we had the same exact table in the beginning as well. Then we get into our debt financing, our pro forma projections, rent comps, sales comps, and then our sensitivity analysis. So Really important. Again, not every investor is interested in every single piece of this information, but very important to include it because it justifies the investment. And it shows why this is such a good investment. And then we get into our market overview. So this is where we really dive deep into the area. This property is in Fort Myers, Florida. So we talk about like in the news, any new businesses coming to the area or business expansions are always good to show. Recreation. So Fort Myers is more of a tourist type area, although it's also got a really great demographic. I think in this area, it's the average income was over 6 figures, which I thought was really impressive. But so showing, close proximity major employers, retail, the beaches, if it's close to beaches, golf courses. So every market's different. So sometimes this section is going to look a lot more like when we have properties in Raleigh. You talk about the tons of businesses and Fortune 500 companies that are coming to the area and really show why people are moving to that area. And in this case, for Fort Myers, we're showing why people are moving to the area, which is, the amazing golf courses and the beaches and the retail. It makes it a great place to live. And then we get into our portfolio. So you can see we've got it broken down in table format, and then we get into each property a little bit, just a quick snapshot of the properties we have in our portfolio. We'll break those down. And this is constantly changing as we're buying and selling properties. And then we also highlight our high yield dispositions. This is also changing as we sell property. So each time I create a new investor pitch deck, I'm making sure this information is up to date and yeah. So then we just get into the back portions, just called, the index. We talk about our property management company briefly. We've got some real estate terms and definitions. And then obviously share our team here. So, and again, this is always changing as well. People joining our company. So I think this page has, if you look at the most recent one, we've got a good bit more faces to share. So, it's important to show who you've got on the team and who, when they call or email the investor relations team, who are they speaking with? They know Andrew Davis is right here. So yeah, so that's, and then, obviously we've got a back cover. You can kind of see this version matches exactly what's online. Like I said, if we can make live updates to the online version, but we can't obviously make live updates to the printed version. But other than that, it's typically, exactly the same. So what third-party sites and services are we using to create this? So we use CoStar to get a lot of our information, and then our acquisitions team has their process as well, using a mix of CoStar and market research to get some of their information that they provide to me. To design, I'm using InDesign, which is an Adobe product, Adobe Creative Suite. So I use InDesign. I'm not sure. I think some people are asking about, let's see, if you aren't good at graphic design, do you recommend any sites to help build these? The best, so you can use PowerPoint and create something, and then I would send it to a VA, like someone from Upwork or 99 Designs, or there's a couple other sites that are pretty good, where they can take what you've done in like a PowerPoint or in a Word doc and turn it into something in InDesign that's, really laid out really pretty, really beautifully. So that would be my recommendation if you're not. I use Upwork for other aspects of the business, obviously not design, because I am designing these myself. But yeah, I would definitely get on Upwork and make sure the person that you hire is using InDesign. That's a key part. And then to print or not to print, and what do you need if you do decide to print? So that's where InDesign comes into play. So when I send this to the printer, I'm sending him 2 files. I'm sending him the interior pages, and I'm sending him the cover setup in an InDesign file. So that's why I think if you don't have a background in design, using someone on Upwork and saying, hey, the goal of this is to print this. And then they can set that up. And also finding a printer in your so I use a local printer to Columbia where I'm located. Finding a printer that you can have a relationship with and they can walk you through like the specs that they need, because every printer is going to be different, I found. So you want to make sure that you talk to your printer beforehand, before setting this up, before talking to your VA on Upwork and saying, hey, what do you need to print this? And then they'll give you some specs and you can go from there. But really talking to that printer beforehand, before you design it, because you'll get done with it and they'll be like, wait, we can't do that. I've had situations come up where they're like, wait, that size doesn't work. Like, here's the size you should be using. And then you've got to go back and kind of rework everything. So definitely talk to your printer before you design. That's a key aspect of it. All right, so there's some questions. Let me go through these and answer these if I haven't seen them. So yes, we're going to send the replay to this out tomorrow morning. Someone's asking about the replay. If you aren't good at graphic design, do you recommend any sites to help build these? Like I said, I would use Upwork to find somebody who is a graphic designer. Are there any things about the investment that you are careful not to include in the deck? So I don't think it's are there any things about the investment that you're careful not to include in the deck? I don't think I think the key is showing what is, like, for example, Fort Myers versus Raleigh, North Carolina. So Fort Myers doesn't have nearly the industry that Raleigh does, for example. So you highlight what's good about Fort Myers, not what's bad about Fort Myers, if that makes sense. So don't go talking about how there's like, maybe more or less of one thing. You want to always stay positive when you're laying these out, because the investment itself it's unique, and it may have a higher demographic than Raleigh, but it has less industry. But you don't want to say it has less, manufacturing. Obviously, it has more tourism. So really just highlighting, the key is to highlight what's good about the market. As far as like financials, you definitely want to include everything. You don't want to like leave out your interest rate, for example. Like people are going to like be like, where's the interest rate? You're talking about your debt and you like go beat around the bush. You want to definitely include everything that you have to share, and don't obviously leave something out. I think that would you want to make sure that your potential investor can trust you, that you're being honest. Is there a standard size that you would recommend? So this is 11 by 8.5. That's what we do. You can do it, you could lay it out 8.5 by 11. You could do, I wouldn't go any larger than this, because when we mail these, we put them in a priority envelope, and it's sort of a standard envelope. So once you get to some funky sizes, you might run into issues if you do decide to mail it. So I would stick to either, like 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 8.5. Just my recommendation. Is this project your company's build, or did you purchase this from a developer? You're talking about Las Palmas. We purchased, I don't think it was from I don't know if the purchase was from the developer or from a seller. No, we don't do multifamily development in-house. So this was purchased from the seller. Can I get a copy of this brochure? I can, yeah, we can put the link to the Las Palmas. As far as a physical copy, probably not, because we don't just keep like inventory of these, and any extras we have, we bring to like our events to give out there. But yeah, we can definitely share the link to the digital version if you're interested. What important aspects of a pitch deck do you use when pitching a deal to a group of investors live on a roadshow? You only have about 10 to 15 minutes. Obviously, you can't go through 134 pages. What important aspects of a pitch deck do you use? So I think the key to that is making sure that you have enough copies of this to give out to that group of people. As far as what you talk about, again, talking about what makes that a good investment. So it's going to vary based on the property, the return metrics. Really, just I would, if you're thinking about what should I highlight, highlight what makes it a good investment. I think you have to answer that question yourself. It's not going to be a blanket response across the board for every investment every offering that you have. And then just making sure that you either have enough of these to hand out or you've got the link ready for people to download or have on their own. Could you comment on the 70-30 ownership in the capital stack? Does it cause confusion around equity contribution? So I am probably not the best person to answer that question. So I would email our investor relations team. It's just investorrelations@passiveinvesting.com. Not that I can't speak on it, but I don't want to speak on something that I'm not an expert in. I do more of the marketing side of things. So as far as the splits and the return metrics, I would definitely reach out to our investor relations team. Again, Hannah, if you could put that email in the chat box, it's investorrelations@passiveinvesting.com, and they can break that down for you. Let's see, what is the timeline for publication of the pitch deck? So typically from start to finish. So this takes me about 2 days to create. And then once I'm done, I send it to a group from our team, our managing partners, as well as some of our directors to sort of put eyes on and review, make sure everything, everything looks good. They send it back to me with their approval or their edits. And then from there we will release the deal digitally or online. We send an email and then release the digital version. And while that's happening, these are being printed. So from start to finish, once the printer has it, it takes about 5 days to print. And then mailing takes 1 to 3 days based on where we're in the country. Okay, let's see. Once the pitch deck is handed out, how long do you have to raise the funds before closing? So each deal is different, so it's not really a standard, but typically we have about 30 to 60 days from releasing the deal to close. There is a bit of a delay, as I said, because it takes 5 days to print and then 1 to 3 days to be in hand. So there's about a week delay of when they have it in hand, but if they've checked their email, they have the digital version as well. Do you use the same deck template for every investment opportunity? So yes, it is sort of it's a template. So each section is the same. It goes, executive summary, property profile, financial analysis, et cetera. The information is different. Of course, obviously the returns are different and the financials are different. The market data is different. So, but yes, the overall section breakdown and layout is always the same. And then we also do self-storage, car wash, hotel. So those decks are similar, but because it's a different asset class, they are unique in their own way. Let's see. How can I learn more about syndication? Do you have a coaching program that would help? I recommend checking out our YouTube channel. So for example, this recording is going to be on YouTube when, by tomorrow. Check out our YouTube channel. Hannah, if you'll drop that YouTube channel in the chat box. And there's tons of free videos on our YouTube channel. Our managing partners, they don't do high paid coaching programs. They believe in sort of sharing the knowledge and, attending. Another way is to attend events. So we do our Multifamily Investor Nation convention every year. So that's a great event to attend, as well as there's a lot of other great industry events that I recommend attending. But yeah, check out our event, check out our YouTube channel. You can also see it at the top here. We've got a podcast, Multifamily Investor Nation podcast. There's a lot of great free content out there. I think that's a great place to start if you're new to syndication. I'm not seeing any other questions. If anybody else has any other questions, we can take those now before we jump off. While those last questions are coming in, I'm going to refresh my page here. All right, so next week on the Multifamily Investor Nation webinar, we have Taylor, who's our investor relations associate. He's going to be discussing 3 strategies to build relationships in the multifamily industry online. So another great topic related to, really building your network and, if you're new to the industry, kind of connecting with some people, some key people in the industry to kind of to learn from. Anybody have any other questions before we end today? No? All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here with me today. I'm available if you have any questions. You can email me at melissa@passiveinvesting.com. Happy to answer those. Great. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Frenchie. Thanks for being here. And Taylor will see you guys next week, talking about 3 strategies to build relationships in the multifamily industry online.